Hey everybody, Chris with Overclockersclub. It's fan time, and I just finished reviewing this one. Now, I was originally going to cover these in one big review, but I actually decided to split them up, so these will be covered in two separate reviews. And now it's time to take a look at the Master Fan SF120M. First thing I notice here is it's got the same certified compatible with all these different motherboards, or I should say the functionality of the motherboards there for the RGB control between the two fans, so that's the same. But this box has a little flap that opens, and let's see, industrial grade design, industrial fan materials, okay. Double ball bearing, so we don't have a sleeve or a rifle bearing, we have an actual ball bearing, which is nice. Anti-dust, so the fan blade is designed to help keep dust out. Comes with some rubber fan mounts, a little clip there. This is a little piece that holds your RGB cables together. Some fan screws, and then nothing too unusual over here. 5-year warranty. Uses 1.44 watts. Now this is interesting over here. If you notice, there's a high, medium, and low. And if we look up here, we have 3 different modes. So we've got extreme performance, performance, and silence cooling. And it's been a while since I've seen a fan that actually had a switch on it, so you could control basically the RPM range. So, for example, the high, you go from 650 to 2000, which was the same range on that fan. But we have a medium setting, so you can limit it from 650 to 1600. And there's a low, so you can go from 650 to 1200. So that's nice. And let's see. Addressable RGB. So it's compatible with all, yeah, it's what we looked at on the front of the box flap there. Static logo design. So what that means is your logo is always in the same position. It's not spinning with the fan itself. The hub is static or fixed, which is nice. Patented damping frame design. So basically we have some rubber at the corners that help keep any fan noise or vibration down. So now let's get it out of the box. And there's a nice little user manual here. So it shows you what's in the box, which we sort of already know. Fan mount screw, and a little cap to cover your RGB cable. On the other side, some more information here. Alright, so this is just basically showing you how to hook up the different sockets, or the different plugs there, what socket they go to. There's that little plastic piece that connects your RGB cables so they don't pull apart. Shows you how to use the fan mounts. So you can use screws or the rubber mounts. And it looks like, that's where the switch is, okay, for your fan speed control. Alright, so there's these odd looking things are the rubber fan mounts that make installing the fan very easy because you don't need to use the screws. So there are the screws and that little clip that holds your RGB cables together. So there should be 4 of these little rubber fan installation pieces. So there's the fan. It's got a little weight to it. Well, that's interesting. They use these fasteners to hold the corners together. That's a nice fan. And there you can see how the center hub there is static. It doesn't spin like you see on most other fans. And there's the little switch for controlling the fan speed. See if I can get in there a little better. There you go. Alright, so these little rubber mounts here, the way these are used, so if I want to put my fan in the back of a case, for example, and I want it to blow air out of the back of the case, so the air is going to be coming out the back here, which means this face of the fan right here is going to be mounted in the back of the case, up against the back of the case. So you take these little guys here, you'll use all 4 of them. The long end goes in first, you feed it all the way through, and then you pull it through like that, and you give it sort of 2 little pulls so that this end sort of comes all the way through the hole there, and then you have this little shoulder that sticks out, and this is what actually goes into the metal part of your case. So then you put the fan in the case and then you pull these through, and then the screw hole for the case actually sits inside this little groove right there, and that's how these work. So you end up with these little pieces here sticking out the back of your case, which may or may not be a big deal, but that's how these work. My guess is, though, most people use screws and these will just stay in the box. And then you pull it back through that way. Now, I was originally going to cover these in one big review, but I actually decided to split them up. So these will be covered in two separate reviews. And for what it's worth, one more thing about these is they're really made for cases that have holes back here. For example, if you're going to mount the rear fan. And if you have slots, well, these don't work so well in the slots. They're really made for a fixed fan position. So just so you know. And the fan leads here, I should say the fan power lead and the RGB lead, these are both the same length, and I just measured them and they're just a hair over 300 millimeters. When I get the scale all the way up there, they go just a little bit past, because my scale goes a little past 300. So anyway, anyone who was wanting to know that, now you know. So now I'll get it plugged in, powered up, and let's see what it can do. And it is all powered up. I'm doing the fan tuning right now, and I actually left the other fan that I just tested, the SF120 prismatic, plugged in, because I'll be sort of comparing really the way the two fans sound, see if there's any real difference between them. So they're tuning together, and part of the fan tuning process is to slow the fan down until it stops, and then it figures out what the starting current is. So you basically run the fan from 0 RPMs all the way up to full to get the profile. And of course, these are the two RGB connectors from each fan, and you can see I have them connected, and that's where this little plastic cover comes in. It sort of snaps over. Oops. If you don't drop it, it snaps over these two like that, and you push them in there, and that keeps them connected. So when you're moving cables and things around, they don't become unplugged, because they don't hold together real well on their own. So this guy comes in handy. And there they are, side by side. So you can definitely see how the static hub there, that doesn't turn, whereas you can see the center of that fan is turning. And when we go through the different RGB functions, they are synchronized together through the motherboard. There's the strobing effect. And then the breathing where the color changes. Of course, then there's static, so you can just make them whatever color you want. So I just go over here to my controls, and if I hit red, then they're red, blue, purple, green, any color you want. So looking at the two side by side, to me the intensity is more on the fan with the right. The fan on the left is a little more subtle. I guess that's the way to put it. I don't know that either one is necessarily better than the other, but I do like it. Now here's the smart mode. So when my CPU is cool, it is green. They stay green. And I'll show you here. I'll go ahead and put a little stress on the CPU, and we should see it. I'll use my AIDA64. And as soon as the heat comes on, we should see these change color. There we go. Yep. CPU gets warm and these turn to red. And then when we stop the test, they go back to green. Of course, that, a test like that, you're going from idle to full load, so your temperature change is going to be a little more intense. But you can see over here on the software, I can control at what point the color changes. Anyway, that's a neat feature, but that is of course a function of the software here, and it's not anything that's built into the fan. Any RGB fan would function under that control. So I want to do some sound testing to check the decibel level. And I already checked this fan in the last review, so we'll check this one. But as a little bit of a comparison, if you want to call it an added bonus here, I've got this old Cooler Master fan I've had for several years. I don't even remember where I got it, if it was part of a cooler kit or if it was standalone. There's the model number, part number. I tried to find it and had a hard time finding anything. But this thing absolutely screams. I think it maxes out around 2300 RPMs. And it's really loud, but it does move just a ton of air. But I'll sort of compare the sound from this older fan to what this fan here puts out. So it looks like the ambient decibel levels around 37, 38. Of course, when I'm running my mouth, you can see it goes way up. But when you take a decibel reading, and it really kind of depends on the application, but the general rule of thumb is you want to take it about 1 meter, which is about 3 feet, 39 inches, from the source, which would be the fan here. And the other way, sometimes you'll see it'll say, well, you want to take a reading at what the normal range is where you would be relative to the source of sound. So for example, if I were testing a jet engine, I wouldn't be trying to test it 1 meter from the jet engine. That would be sort of pointless. But the fan here, it's going to be in a case, and you may or may not be a meter away from it, but we'll try to go about a meter just for the purpose of consistency here. All right, so right now, at idle, of course, there's no sound, nothing that my meter will pick up. So I'll go ahead and I'll disable this fan, and we'll just look at this fan at the maximum RPM. Okay, so the only fan that's running is the SF120M. It's running at its maximum, which is approximately 2000 RPMs. The other two fans, as you can see, are disabled. All right, so that's about 40-ish now. I will fumble around with my camera here. Let's go ahead and put this back in standard mode. And there we're idling around roughly 500 RPMs. So, I don't know, an extra decibel or two higher when it's at full blast at a meter. So, very little difference. And just for reference, this is that old Cooler Master fan. It's just barely turning at idle. So I'm going to crank the speed all the way up, which is around 2300 RPMs. Seems like it's running faster than that, but the system shows 2300. And then we'll look at the decibel meter on this fan. Okay, so this one is cranked all the way up. It's considerably louder, so let's see what the decibel meter shows. So it's quite a bit louder, which that is obvious. And looking at the RGB a little more closely, you can see the little trim around the perimeter. It's in 4 places. You can see it goes all the way around the frame, so you can see the color changes, at least on that edge. And then the back of the fan looks like that. So you get the same lighting effect, with the exception of course, there's the center of the hub there. And you know, I'm a little perplexed by the switch for the fan speed, because if your goal is to keep the fan quiet, well, this fan already is very quiet, even on the highest setting. So I don't know that that's anything I would ever really use. I would just keep it in the high mode, and I don't think I would ever really need to change it. And the LED arrangement, there are 6 LEDs in the center hub, and then there are 12 around the perimeter. Pricing right now, retail, is $35, actually $34.99. And I think that's a decent price for what you get. This fan seems to be, I guess if I were comparing these two together, the lighting effects on this one seem to be a little more intense. a little brighter. And this fan overall seems to be a little more heavy duty. The frame seems to be a little more rigid. But as far as functionality, the RPMs, whoops, if I can keep from dropping them, the RPMs between the two maximum are the same. The blade design is a little different. And while both of these fans have 7 blades, you can see there's a difference in the way the fan blades are shaped. These blades here are sort of free, whereas these blades are all sort of integrated to an outer ring. It's all one piece. I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other. From a sound perspective, they both seem to be very quiet. I didn't really notice one of these fans really being any louder than the other. Although this one is rated at 55 CFM and this one is rated at 62, so this one is actually rated to move a little more air than this one. And I really don't know what the CFM rating is on this fan. Although I just noticed in the red ink there's the date 2013, July 1st, so that shows you how old this fan is. And it still goes strong. Well, I guess I'm just about done rambling on and on about these fans. I guess if you ask me which one I like better, I don't know. I kind of like both of them. The thing that really stands out the most for both of these fans is how quiet they are. That really surprised me, probably more than anything. I mean, the lighting effects are cool, and if I'm picking between the two, pricing, again, this is around $30, this is around $35, so there's only $5 that separates them. But I guess maybe I kind of like the way the fan hub here is fixed, so maybe I would pick this one. I don't know. Regardless, I would give this one the Overclockers Club Gold Award. So this is Chris with Overclockers Club. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.